You're listening to the Good Question Podcast with Richard Jacobs. Our goal is to make each of our guests exclaim, that's a good question. I don't know the answer. Because when that happens, it means you, the listener, may be inspired to learn more beyond the interview and to ask great questions yourself that lead to new insights. In this podcast, we cover historical and current anthropology, comparative religion, and history. Welcome, and let's get started.
Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with the Good Question Podcast. My guest today is Dimitri Moraitis. He's the co-founder of Spiritual Arts Institute, and we're going to talk about karma and what is called collective karma, and what the Spiritual Arts Institute is doing. And Dimitri is philosophy here. So, welcome, Dimitri. Thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you for having me on your show.
If you would, let's start a little bit with your background, and then how you came to found this institute or this initiative, and then we'll go into what it's about.
Right. Okay. Great. Well, actually, I'm born of Greek parents, and I came from an artistic background. Actually, I was pursuing music and movies and a career in the arts. And then I went to Los Angeles because that's kind of where you pursue a movie career. I was actually going pretty good, but also I was having these moments that I couldn't really explain what they were. I call them my inspirational moments, but they were kind of inexplicable experiences of sort of a heightened awareness of things. They were very beautiful. They came unexpectedly. They left unexpectedly. And again, at the time, I didn't really know what metaphysics was. So I thought, well, I guess I'm just feeling inspired right now. But they got so strong, I eventually had an unmistakable, spiritual awakening. Even then, I didn't have quite the word metaphysics attached to it. As a Greek, you're born basically Greek Orthodox, and we were sort of we went to Easter service or things like that, but I won't say we were, going to church every Sunday. And then when I realized metaphysics was what this was, I couldn't get enough of it. And about a year later, I met Barbara, the person I co-founded the organization with and write the books with, and she's this marvelous clairvoyant, and she's about a generation older than me. So I realized that very night, I found my spiritual teacher. And right away, she started teaching me. But then we also started working on writing projects and public presentation things. And, this went on for a while. And then everyone said, we got to organize all of this. You've got so much teaching, but there's no real books yet. There's no course material. It isn't organized that way. So we started writing books and then publishing them, some of them through Penguin Tarcher, and then started the Institute and Spiritual Arts Institute to give a home for this, for people that have had some type of awakening and they're trying to understand what it all means, help give them some orientation. So some people that are with us just had their awakening, others that have been on the path for a long time, but find these teachings revelatory. So we're here down in Encinitas now. We started in Los Angeles, California. We're down in more the San Diego area now, where we have an institute and a physical building, but we also do a lot online. We were doing online before the COVID and the Zoom era, and we're still doing it. It's sort of blended learning. You come into the training room now. There are these jumbo monitors, so you can join in person, or, the online people join in as well. So it's almost like being in a major boardroom or something like that.
One quick question here. I just want to go back a little bit. You said you started having some spiritual experiences. What were they? Like, if you're open to describing them, what happened?
Well, I won't say I was seeing angels, but I was in a very heightened state of awareness, is the best way to describe it. And when you're in that state, you seem to understand things much more clearly. You can perceive what's going on with other people much more clearly. It's not what they call, woo-woo, or you're like space cadet feeling at all. You felt very much that your feet were on the ground. I mean, we've all had inspired moments, right, where you had this marvelous idea for something and it's for real, and you're almost in sort of an ecstatic state. That's what these were like. But it wasn't necessarily around, writing or something like that. I did some research afterwards, and I found many other people through the years that had similar experiences. Even some very famous people through the years were having these kinds of experiences. But when it kind of changed my worldview as far as how you see the world, to realize really this physical world is not all there is. There is another world beyond it. You can't go back. It just changes you forever. So once that happened, that was the beginning of the road. So yes, we've been, and of course it's deepened. I mean, I had this when I was in my 20s. So I've been on this path for about 40 years now. So it only gets stronger. And the beautiful thing of when I started working with Barbara, she gave me language for it. She helped me understand what it actually was that I was going through because, she was well aware of it herself. And of course, she had even more gifts. She had all these clairvoyant talents and all these other things. So it was just, I felt like, it's like meeting the person you're meant to be with. I know I'm meant to go down this field. And it was a big change because I had a very happy life, where I was. And this was like foreign to all of that. So it was rather a dramatic turnaround. Some of my friends didn't understand what I was going through. As, you've been in California too long. I in the Midwest, in Chicago area, but what does Shakespeare say? To thine own self be true, and in turn you cannot be false to anyone. So that's kind of the way I was living my life. And it's always led me down the right path. But interestingly enough, had I not gone to LA to pursue film, I don't know if it would have unfolded the way it did. So I know it sounds corny, but, following your bliss, following where you truly feel led to go may not be the ultimate end of the destination that you're meant to go to, but it's certainly the next step.
Well, what was strong about I don't know how you describe it, but about the feelings that you were getting? You said they grew stronger and stronger. What does that mean?
Well, you got more into that altered state. It got more intense. And I mean, it gets a little, then things start to happen when you're in that just,
any one experience that jumps out at you, if you're willing to share, it's okay.
Yeah. I mean, I could tell what people were going to say before they said it. It's sort of telepathic, but it wasn't exactly telepathic because I wasn't picking up their thought, but I was seeing the thought current that was in the room before anybody said a word. So I would know, okay, they're going to talk about this. And that's what they do. It was like, we don't realize that we're often picking up things. Our mind is often like an antenna. It's much more than just what's in our brain box. And so when you are kind of being able to do this, you do start to, and Barbara would tell me when she was, she had this from almost birth, she said in high school, I knew what the teacher was going to say. I knew the answer before she asked the question, and she skipped 2 years at school. She graduated high school at 16. Yeah. So again, these are, I don't want to, some claim that, these are psychic gifts that you have. No, this was not psychic. This was something else. And then I got, the big thing then, Barbara taught me, is meditation. Meditation in our work is fundamentally important because you can be too caught up in the cares of the world that you need that meditation time to step back in and kind of tune into your own, we have this inner divine self. We are not our bodies. We inhabit a body. That's what metaphysics teaches. And as you start to realize the inner self, shall we say, it blesses all parts of your life, but you do need that meditative state to do that. Of course, many of the great traditions emphasize meditation and prayer, and the foundation of all the work we do is on that vein too.
Do these gifts carry through with you too today, or did they?
Oh yeah,
they waned.
Well, then though at the beginning, because I was so untrained, as I said, it was happening without any. It just was like the wind blowing. You had no control over it whatsoever, and it almost didn't matter where you were. I remember one time I was at an outdoor shopping mall of all places, and then suddenly here it comes. So it didn't have to be like on a mountaintop or overlooking an ocean, or it could be in what could be very commonplace surroundings. Just for something about that situation made that happen. But the thing with that is those things are like inspiration. You can't command inspiration to come, but no question, as you learn some techniques, you can set up a much more conducive environment for it to happen. So it's happened now, a lot happens, now it happens more systematically, let's put it that way. But this is many years of practice.
Do you associate your gifts with any particular religion? Yeah, Buddhism, Christianity?
No. Yeah. Well, so when I first had the awakening, somebody told me, you've had a religious awakening. And I said, I don't know. It doesn't feel like that. Now in our work, we say metaphysics and religion are kind of like two arms of the same study. They're two aspects of the same. So one of the things we do is we do teach a tradition. We don't just sort of make up lessons. And what Barbara taught was part of a tradition. And we say, yes, this tradition does go back to the Hebrew mystics. and it's been continuous for 4,000 years. It's not a particular religion per se, but it draws on, the Hebraic, the Christian, even the Islamic. So in that sense, we draw from a tradition, but that's kind of like a home for your, the talents or the gifts, you have regardless. And this is kind of like, well, okay, what's the school of development? In the ancient days, they had the mystery schools. So people would literally go into these schools, and many would live there for sometimes the rest of their life, kind of like an ashram, and they'd literally learn the mysteries of life. And it's one of the big things that made ancient Greece what it was. Maybe people don't realize a lot of those great ideas of ancient Greece came from those that were in the mystery schools. It was a very honored part of society at that time. This honored society doesn't honor it quite the same way as it did in the ancient days, but it's, one of our jobs, we're trying to help create that environment again, what we call the mystery school kind of methodology of teaching again, because so many people are having their spiritual awakening now. It's happening all over the world. There doesn't seem to be any particular person or place. It's like a grass that's just suddenly growing all over the planet. So
what do you mean it's happening all over the world? You're running into more and more people with these gifts, or what's happening?
Oh, well, students are from all over the world. They've had their awakening from all. It's interesting. There was a time when the Catholic Church was when it was kind of the New Agey, it was called like New Age. They were trying to research this, and I remember reading the write-up, and they were saying the unusual thing about this, it's not led by a particular person, and it's not happening in a particular part of the world. So it wasn't like, oh, Buddha started this, Jesus started that. It seems to be this general awakening where people are questioning or having experiences like what I had, and they're trying to orient themselves. They're trying to figure out what's going on right now. So I know we're very focused on all the technological wonders that are happening right now, and those are wonderful. But quite frankly, there's an even greater opportunity to awaken some of the inner spiritual knowledge that's kind of been hidden for some time, and now just humanity is asking for it. So, quite frankly, to have a discussion like this, maybe 150 years ago, we'd have to be in some ashram or mystery school to do that. It would not be common conversation, and certainly not on a public platform. But that shows you how far we've come.
Yeah. The gifts that you see are coming into people's lives, is it always the same gift, or are they all different? Like, what are you noticing about the gifts?
Well, it's not all the same. It's not all the same. So some people are having sort of clairvoyant experiences. They're literally seeing things from the unseen world. Others are having like telepathic, or others are having kind of like what I said, there's a shift in consciousness. Some are having it after a great tragedy where they feel like, they're at the end of the rope, or something broke their worldview of things, and then it got them questioning. And now for some people, it's not like Saul on the road to Damascus. It's not a dramatic moment. I have to say mine was. But for others, it's gradual over time. One person was saying how he accomplished everything. He was young and he accomplished everything on his, that he thought he would accomplish in life. He did it very early. And I love what he said. He said it was the saddest day of my life because he realized that's not all there is. It was a lot of, I guess, material things here, a family, great job, money, those kinds of things. He hit all those marks, but felt there's something missing. And that was the beginning of his spiritual awakening. So we all have it at our own time. You can't, again, you can't command inspiration. You can't command the awakening. I didn't make it happen. It happened to me.
What flavors are you seeing of the gifts in your, I don't know if you call them students or just members, or, what is the
a variety. What I'm most happy about now is when we kind of started this, well, again, Barbara's been a pioneer for 50 years, but when we started this as an organization about 25 years ago, it was the New Age time, and everybody wanted to hear about the angels, or, they wanted to see spiritual light. It was a little bit in I wouldn't say the phenomenal, but we see a little bit more of the psychic stuff. And today, what we're noticing more and more is people are really asking questions like, how do I grow spiritually? How do I develop myself spiritually? So I see there's been a big maturity. 20 years ago, meditation was a fringe thing. Now you've got apps to do it and things like that. That didn't exist anywhere near back then. So the world is definitely changing. And I think, again, along with all this drama that's going on in so many areas of life, one of the things we teach is there's more opportunity to explore this part of your nature.
Again, what are some of the gifts that you're seeing? How do they look different from yours? Or are they all kind of in the same vein?
No, as I said, they're not necessarily the same. First of all, people are all coming into the work from different types of life situations, right? But they're all coming with the same. It's funny. It's not like, sometimes you think in marketing, okay, where's your market audience? But the interesting thing about this is you could have somebody that is a high-powered executive and somebody that's, a window washer, somebody that lives in Peoria, someone that lives in India. There's no one one demographic. I do notice a lot of women are very interested in this. I would say the majority are women. Some are the baby boomers, some are in the younger, and some are even like teenagers in their having, but they've all had something. It's not one thing that got them on the road. And sometimes it's not even a specific, again, oh, I saw the light. It's just, I know there's something there and I'm trying to figure this out. There's an inner urging, like when you get a calling, whether it was like for a career or something. I think that's a good word to use it, a calling. And you can't always analyze it. It's not like, oh, there it is right there. But it's just like falling in love. It's real. You're not, this is not the rose-colored glasses love. This is real love. And so you have to follow your heart. And then it's up to you. The beautiful part of the journey is, yes, you get help along the way, but we all have to do our own growing. We all have to do our own developing. This is not a shortcut to anything in life, like, oh, suddenly I don't have to worry about all these things going on. No, but what they do is they help empower you to get through things. So whether it was COVID or other dramas going on, it's so easy to fall into the gloom and doom scenario and think the world is falling apart, the sky is falling, and when you have the spiritual, that inner perspective, you don't so caught up in those fears, and you make sure you're navigating the things that you need to really be doing.
So what do you guys teach at the Spiritual Arts Institute?
Yeah,
what guidance is provided?
Right. So it's actual training courses. So metaphysics is a little bit like learning to play the piano or a language. You could certainly go to a weekend workshop. You could certainly dip your toes in the water. But if you really want to get good at it, I used to teach piano, but some people come into lesson and think, okay, I'm going to, 2 weeks, I'm going to learn this piece. No, it's not. You have to practice this. It's going to take some time. Same with metaphysics. You've got to sort of immerse yourself in it. So we have a course called the 7 Spiritual Arts. We know the 7 liberal arts, right? That the design of those liberal arts were to teach you kind of the mental rigors of life, right? It wasn't a particular trade. But in a sense, it was how to think intellectually, how to use reason, so that whatever problem you have in your life, you have the mental equipment to sort of handle yourself. Well, the 7 spiritual arts are on the spiritual vein, giving you the tools to help you deal with the challenges of life from that spiritual perspective. And each one is a different facet of the spiritual study.
Can you give maybe just one example? One of the
Karma and Reincarnation, that's one of the studies. Understanding the laws of karma, how it plays in our life. Understanding the idea of reincarnation, that's a big one. We all wonder, well, why is there suffering in the world? Why was I born rich, you born poor, I born poor, you born... Why does it seem like... And one of the answers is there's a bigger picture going on, and karma is a big part of that. We all come into this life with sort of unfinished business, and part of our journey, one of the things metaphysics teaches is that this life on earth is like going to school, and the different things that are happening in our life are part of our spiritual education. So even your career, your family, you see it on one level, but it's not just about a job. It's not just about making money. You're learning other things in that process, and that's part of your spiritual growth. So we help people kind of develop that part of their nature. A big area, which is Barbara's huge area, is the auric field, that we all have this energy field in us and around us, and it's the energetic blueprint of our soul. So everything we're thinking, feeling, doing is happening here, and it's often showing up in our aura before it is in our life. I remember when I first met Barbara, I was still in the film biz, and that's a little bit of a feast or famine business. Either you're working like crazy or you're not working at all. And I was a little bit in that not working mode. And she casually looked at me and pointed this part of my aura and just said, "Oh, you're going to be working real soon." And lo and behold, I got the most lucrative offer up to that point I'd gotten in the film business 2 weeks later. So it was already my aura. It just hadn't quite showed up in my life yet. Yeah.
So you help people cultivate whatever their particular ability it is.
Not so much ability the ability is kind of like the door. It's what got you interested. So the goal is to develop yourself spiritually, develop your character traits, to start to look at life from the inside out, so to speak. You know, that we are these immortal sparks of life first. We're material beings second. Teilhard de Chardin said it right. We're not humans having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. So once you reorient yourself and see life from the spirit first, your life just improves dramatically. You have a lot more confidence. You have a lot more self-assurance. There's just a whole change in your attitude. You're much more creative because you're more in touch with the creative part of you. Everything in it's not one part of your life that improves. It's to give you one quick example, there was a woman in our classes and she had a fear. Now, this was a character thing she had to work on. She had a fear of crossing bridges, physical fear. She was afraid of crossing it. There's a little phobia there. And
Bridge too far, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And she had to cross 3 bridges to get to work every morning, right? So this was an issue for her. And she went to therapy, all this kind of stuff. Well, about 6 months of doing what we call the light work, the meditations, the classes. She says, one day I went to work and I didn't even realize I had crossed the 3 bridges. It wasn't even an issue anymore. She had completely worked it out. So there's many examples we have of that, you know, but everyone is unique because everyone is dealing with a different, you know, life issue or something they're trying to strengthen or whatever. I know when I first really started working with Barbara, my creativity shot up and I was already a creative person, but it just, you know, the ideas came in. Now, in my case, I ended up shifting away from a career in entertainment because I really realized metaphysics wasn't meant to be just for me personally, but it was also meant to be a career. Now, that's not true for everybody, but it was for me. So I went through sort of a double transformation in terms of my internal, but then redirecting my whole sort of career path. Yeah.
Well, what are maybe chances are one or more listeners maybe having some of these experiences, just not know what to do? So what advice do you have for people that are listening? What could or should they look for to let them know, like, something's going on here?
Yeah, well, definitely I would encourage them to pursue it. That if you're having those feelings, don't ignore them. You don't necessarily have to tell everybody in the world what's going on. They may not understand. I made that mistake a little bit at first. I was kind of sharing things with everybody and I didn't realize everybody was not going through what I was going through, you know. But you could start by researching, like, again, you're listening to a podcast, just kind of orient yourself. Now, I was very careful. I didn't jump into any group or anything right away. So in my case, I did a lot of research. So that also, I think that helped that when I did meet Barbara, it was easier for me to recognize her, you know, as my teacher. So some of this you can pursue on your own. There's a lot out there right now. But I will share this at a certain point, just like any profession or whatever, you know, you need skilled training. You need to work, you know, you don't want to be a brain surgeon unless you've really gone through the training, right? So the same way here, it's a demanding field. And in the end, you want to find, you know, a match. And there's that old teaching, when the student's ready, the teacher appears. So often it does seem to happen that when you're ready to take that next step, somehow the opportunity does open up. But I would just encourage anyone having feelings like this or questioning things like this to seek it out, to explore more what's really happening, because there's a marvelous road ahead if you've had your awakening.
Well, do you have people that haven't had a strong awakening? Maybe they had just a tiny glimpse,
Right,
a feeling.
Right.
Do they come to you as well, or it's really only the ones that have been punched in the face? But
No. Exactly. Well, the punch in the face, you can't, you know, ignore it, right?
Right.
But no, some are. And look, everybody goes to the, you know, not everybody. We've had students with us now since we started over 20 years, right? We've had some that just went through the 2-year program. So it's just like anything. You may want to learn French. It doesn't mean you're going to live in France, right? So it's really up to you how far you want to go. For some, it's meant to be, like you're saying more, it's like, let me dip my toes in the water. I do feel a need to understand this a little better. And then if you feel like that need got satisfied, then you may be done, But I have noticed those that do go here, there's usually a desire for more. It's just like, again, when you fall in love with music, you're not going to just play a few songs and then say, you're done. It starts to become kind of a lifestyle. Not for everybody, but again, like I shared when I had the awakening, I couldn't go back to the old world even if I wanted to. I just saw it differently. So it wasn't really a choice. Now, I could have not pursued it as much, that's for sure, but I couldn't go back to being the other person that I was. That was over. So that's why we say follow it as long as you feel the desire to do it, see where it leads, because again, it could lead to some marvelous things. And why did it happen? And yes, sometimes it does happen when you've been through difficulty, right? You've been through a deathly illness or a death and someone died suddenly that you love very much, or again, something that shocked you in a way that made you kind of, maybe you had a certain worldview, and for some reason that worldview got shaken. And that can be an opportunity. I love the Chinese symbol for crisis and opportunity is the same symbol.
Right.
So that means that a crisis moment is a shifting moment. And if you look at it in the right way and not say the glass is half empty, but, oh, maybe there's more to fill in my glass, then it could be the beginning of something, wonderful.
Okay. So how do people find out about the Spiritual Institute? Where can they go to find out more about it? And again, what things should they look for that would tell them maybe there's something else happening and they need to look deeper to get training and help?
Right. Well, again, I would like, for example, in our case, we have books. So if you feel like, well, okay, I'm interested in this person, but I don't really know that much about them, well, maybe I'll read one of their books and see, does it drive with me? Does it connect with me? We have workshops, so you could take a one-day workshop, or then we have the training classes. The initial one we have is the 6-week training class that actually teaches you the meditation practice. And then that one really that's where you kind of get a feeling, oh, is this for me or not? And that course is called Change Your Aura, Change Your Life. So, because the meditation we work with is related to the auric field. So this is where, one of Barbara's kind of founding teachings is that, she was seeing auras from age 3, and she got her first training at age 11 from another mystic that could see the aura too, because she said, when I was a kid, I could see it, but I couldn't interpret it. So, for example, colors in the aura mean certain things. Lemon yellow means you have a lot of powers of concentration. You probably have a very good intellect. Pink means there's a loving nature in you. But it could also go to the other stuff. Like she said, it wasn't easy seeing my parents argue because I could see this discordant energy exchanging between them. So it wasn't always a blessing to have that gift. But the idea is you can change the aura, and that's what our meditations do, what we work with. So let's say you want to ask for a raise at your job, and you deserve it, but you sort of chicken out, when it comes time to go into the boss's office or something. And in the aura, that would say, well, maybe you're lacking in a little bit of confidence, and that shows up as a gold light. So you actually meditate with a gold to bring it into your auric field. Now, it's not automatically part of you, but go in and ask for that job, that raise. You may find it was easier because now you have more of that power that was driving it. In one of our classes, we had a doctor, and he said, I'll be honest with you, I'm not very compassionate to my patients. I see so many every day. It's kind of go in, go out. He knew something was wrong. So he said, well, you got to work more with the loving energies. These are people, not petri dishes, right? So you got to spend time with them. And he did work with it. And he said, not only did my patients suddenly love what was going on, but my practice got even more full because he started treating them with more compassion and kindness. As I guess they say in the trade, good bedside manners. But it's not just manners. It's recognizing, this is a person I'm dealing with. And I think more doctors actually have to do that these days. But that's how the work can help you. Yeah.
Right. Last question. Have you ever taken someone that, they're like, I don't really feel like I've had any of these promptings, but, shape me, see what you can do, help me, open my eyes. Have you had someone do that, and were you able to?
Well,
or
if
people like that don't usually.
There has to be an interest, right? Why would you do this if you weren't interested? So there has to be something that's sparking you to try it. But like I said, we've worked with many people. They're not necessarily full-blown, had, the sky parted. It wasn't necessarily like that at all. But there was obviously an interest because it is work. You have to apply yourself here. You have to kind of get in there. So it's like, okay, I like listening to music, but you know what? I think I'd like to learn how to play an instrument. I think I'd like to take it to the next stage. Doesn't mean you're going to be a concert violinist, but it means you are going to learn, which will do what? It'll help you appreciate music all the more because now you've kind of gotten on the inside of it. So yeah, we've worked with people at all stages of the journey.
Okay, well, very good. Well, Dimitri, thank you for coming on the podcast and talking about this. It's it would be nice to have some of these gifts, or at least one, come to me or to other people I know.
Maybe that's around the corner.
Yeah. Well, very good. Again, thank you for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. You take care now.
Thank you for listening to the Good Question Podcast. Please email support@thegoodquestionpodcast.com if you have any referrals to great guests for us to interview. Visit thegoodquestionpodcast.com to hear more interviews. And please help us spread the word by rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to this podcast.